All of you are so important and blessed by God and for God. And I wanted to share with you guys this chapter 19 of this wonderful book by Joyce Meyer called Power Words. And it's to just keep a positive note, just to always choose the positive in life and to always give a good report. Because that's how God sees us, having a good life. Here we go. Chapter 19, give a good report. During Old Testament times, God's people, Israel, were aware of the promised land he said he would give them. They may not have been aware of the difficulties involved in getting there. In fact, at times, their own attitudes, words, and actions made their journey much harder and longer than it had to be. When they finally got close, their leader Moses sent 12 spies into the land to find out what would be involved in possessing this promised place. Numbers 13:32 tells us what 10 of the spies concluded. So they brought the Israelites an evil report of the land which they had scouted out, saying that the land through which we went to spy it out is a land that devours its inhabitants, and all the people that we saw in it are men of great stature. That was not a good report. It was so discouraging and frightening to the people of Israel that they began to weep and grumble. They even talked about choosing a new leader and going back to slavery in Egypt, according to Numbers 14:1-4. Think about it. One negative report influenced an entire nation in such a bad way that they wanted to totally give up on God's promise. They wanted to return to back-breaking labor and harsh submission to the Egyptians, just because of what a small group of people had said. But Moses had sent 12 spies into the land, and 2 of them, Joshua and Caleb, gave an entirely different report from the one the 10 had given. They said, "The land through which we passed as scouts is an exceedingly good land. If the Lord delights in us, then he will bring us into this land and give it to us, a land flowing with milk and honey," according to Numbers 14:7-8. What a difference! The 10 spies gave a totally depressing report, while Joshua and Caleb spoke extremely positively with faith and courage about the very same place the 10 spies thought was so bad. This emphasizes the point that many situations in life have both positive and negative aspects, and that the way we view things determines whether those situations will intimidate and defeat us or whether we will conquer them with God's help. The 10 spies spoke negatively about the promised land because they viewed it negatively. They chose not to see the positive aspects of it or the possibilities in it. I'm sure the promised land was like anything else people encountered. It has its pluses and its minuses. I doubt every single thing about it was perfect because nothing on earth is perfect. No matter how we wish we could deal with perfect people, work at perfect jobs, live in perfect neighborhoods, attend perfect churches, or manage our time or money perfectly, the fact is that nothing is without its flaws or challenges. Every person we encounter and every circumstance is a mixed bag of things we like and things we do not like. God does not want us to focus on the bad. He wants us to magnify the good. As I mentioned earlier, when I write about focusing on the positive, I'm not talking about closing our eyes to the legitimately bad things in life and never acknowledging or dealing with them. My point is that we can live in reality and see things as they are and choose to view them with an optimistic perspective, think positive thoughts about them, and give good reports concerning them. The truth is, no matter how bad a situation may be, speaking negatively about it will not change it. When we speak badly about it to ourselves, we only push ourselves further into negativity. When we complain to others or use our prayer times to moan and groan to God, we make things worse. The only way to make a situation better is to go to God honestly and to ask Him to intervene. We do not have to deny what may be wrong, but we do not need to demonstrate our willingness to see the good in it and confess our trust in God to change it as He sees fit. We could say something like, God, I'm hurting right now because of my circumstances, but I know you have a great plan for my life, and I know you are moving me toward it. I believe you can use this situation for my good, and I trust you to turn it around and make it a blessing in my life. I certainly don't think we should never mention the problems or struggles we face. Sometimes simply letting a mature friend or a counselor know what we are going through can be very helpful. In addition, if we know someone who has the power to change our situation, we might speak with that person about it. But simply talking about our troubles for no reason other than to just talk will not solve anything. If we're going to talk about our problems, we should do so with the goal of making the situation better, not worse. Go back to the story of the 10 negative Hebrew spies who scouted out the promised land. Nothing they say to Moses was positive. They acknowledged the milk and honey, as did Joshua and Caleb, but then their report quickly turned negative. They told Moses, "We came to the land which you sent us. Surely it flows with milk and honey. This is its fruit. But the people who dwell there are strong, and the cities are fortified and very large. Moreover, there we saw the sons of Anak, of great stature and courage." According to Numbers 13:27 through 28. The spies then went on to say that various enemies of the Israelites dwelled in certain parts of the promised land. The people began to grumble and complain about this, but Caleb spoke up and calmed them down. Then, without denying the presence of their enemies, he said, "Let us go up at once and possess it. We are well able to conquer it." Numbers 13:30. The 10 spies spoke doubt and fear, while Caleb, speaking for himself and Joshua, spoke faith, courage, and victory. As a result, Joshua and Caleb were the only 2 of the 12 spies allowed to enter the promised land. The other spies died in the wilderness along with the Israelites who chose to believe the negative report. In Matthew 12:36, Jesus says, "But I tell you, on the day of judgment, men will have to give account for every idle, inoperative, non-working word they speak." If certain things we say can be non-working, then other things can be working. In other words, what we say with our mouths makes a difference. Our words either work for us or against us. We need to keep in mind the power or working ability of our words every time we open our mouths to speak. The 10 Hebrew spies failed to do this, and they missed out on God's promise. No matter what you face, always believe God's promises. Even if you have to overcome some difficulties in order to see those promises come to pass, speak positively about them. Put the words of your mouth to work in your life through speaking hope, faith, courage, and breakthrough. With that chapter having finished way too quickly, I feel, I would love to remind you guys that the invitation that God gives us, the hand extended to us, is to not live oblivious in ignorance. As we say, ignorance is bliss. We must speak truth. And sometimes truth contains adverse moments. But we are not to allow those adverse moments to take hold of our lives. We will not give them dominion, speaking defeat. Instead, we can choose to encourage each other, ourselves. We can choose to declare victory through God's grace, not our own doing. And we can always, always, always choose to shed positive light with our words. I know that is a struggle I'll speak for myself first. Sometimes it's a struggle to have a positive word on my tongue. But I have found that God, in His grace, will allow me to positively speak when others are hearing me. And I always do my best to put this disclaimer. May it be God's word you speak, not mine. Because I know that my human nature can tend to be negative. And so if I know that about myself, I just give it to God and ask Him to take over every time I open my little yapper. So I encourage all of you to do your best to keep a positive note in everything that we live and in everything that we say, because we know that words have power. I love you guys greatly. And until the next chapter, let us continue this uphill battle, for some more uphill than others, in this adventure as we try to keep positive words on our lips. I love you guys, and goodbye.